Okay, hi. Today I will present our presenter, Bassem Abdel Ghaffar. I hope I said it well. So he's an accomplished professional deeply rooted in the fields of psychology, language, neuroscience, and special education. His academic journey includes a BA and MA in psychology, and he's currently a PhD candidate at the University of Zagreb, specializing in language and neuroscience. Bassem holds a clinical competence certificate in speech and pathology from the Faculty of Medicine, and he is educational leadership graduate for Perkins School for the Blind. He as well holds the honorary title of Communication Ambassador from Deafblind International, and his main professional focus lies in humanistic approaches to deafblind education, particularly in child-guided strategies. So Bassem, thank you for accepting our call for a presentation.
Thank you very much, Ivana, for the introduction and for the invitation. It's my honor and pleasure to present to the group, which is very valuable to me, especially it's part of the Deafblind International. I hope I will deliver today what you expect. So if it's okay, I can start now.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. I will start by going directly to the presentation, speaking about the deafblind definition. Just an introduction to communication, just to establish which group that we are speaking about. We speak about the deafblind. Deafblind is combined vision and hearing disability. The problem with deafblindness is significantly limit a person's access to the information. When we say information, we usually say or we mean both kind of information, physical information, like information coming from the physical world, coming through the senses, like the light carried information or sound carried information, but we also mean the social part or social aspects of the information. And it also affects the mobility as part of it. The problem with deafblindness that makes the process of education or learning very hard because of the high level of individuality. As we all know, most of the curriculums or the programs that are made for disability or even for regular children usually focuses on the big chunk in the middle of the bell curve, the people who are in the middle. The problem is deafblindness, or the characteristic of deafblindness, that all members of this group are highly individual. So we cannot actually apply one plan or one program to all of the group members of these group. The definition that is near and dear to my heart is the Nordic definition of deafblindness, because I'm originally trained in this approach, the Nordic approach, or as they call it, the Scandinavian approach. Deafblind is combined vision and hearing impairment of such severity that is hard for the impaired to sense and compensate for each other. This is actually one of the most important diagnostic criteria for diagnosis of deafblindness in educational terms, not in medical terms. Because if you have one sense, like if you have a child who was medically diagnosed as being deafblind, but in the functional level, a child can utilize her hearing or her vision to compensate for each other. So at that point, we have some doubts if the child actually educationally fall in the on the group or the diagnosis, educational diagnosis of medical of deafblindness. The problem with proper deafblind group that no other senses can, like vision cannot compensate for hearing and hearing cannot compensate for vision. And how we know that? If the child, like a long time ago, I used to work for school for the deaf. We had the students who are also like with visual disabilities. But the doctor said, no, the vision is good somehow. And they are not deafblind, of course, because they have residual vision. This is a medical definition. But when we look at the Nordic definition and we see those children we see how they struggle. Even they have residual vision, but their hearing cannot carry out what they are missing. So will be diagnosed according to the Nordic definition of deafblindness as a deafblind, although they are not medically deafblind. So this is a very important nuance between the medical and diagnostic educational part in classifying deafblindness. The main implications of these definitions that the varying degrees of deafblindness limit activity and restrict full participation in society. As we just said at the previous definition, that the social life is what really matters in our discussion today, because social life, this is the basis for communication. Without social interaction, there will not be communication, and social life is the basis for communication. But it also affects other aspects of life, like mobility and orientation, and of course, other aspects like learning skills by observing the other doing it, because they will have this vision or hearing problem. Okay. When we say deafblindness, we don't usually say it's deafness plus blindness, because some people think that deafblindness is addition of deafness or blindness. You will have the other one. Actually, the relationship between deafblindness in deaf and blindness in deafblindness is multiplication kind of relationship or interactional relationship more than addition. So you will have here a new kind of disability. It is not disability of deafness plus disability of blindness. You will get deaf plus blindness to be deafness. It's totally different. Deafness and blindness, when they are combined, gives us a new kind of disability. It's a unique disability. That's why it needs a unique intervention approaches to approach this kind of unique disability. We cannot use the approaches that is used for deafness only or blindness only, because it will not work. That's why we need to have a unique and individual kind of disability as deafblindness. That's why we write deafblindness with big D and small b, because it's one word, not two words of deaf and blindness. So it's very important to notice that, because some people, I have worked with some teachers who are coming from field of vision disability or hearing disability, who are trying to apply the approaches or the curriculums of the deafness or blindness to these kind of combined disabilities, which will not allow the child to progress or to develop, because the child expected to rely on the residual sense, which is not there by definition of being deafblind. So it's kind of important point I wanted to make before we move forward to the combination of vision and hearing disability. And of course, what affects the severity is what affects the disability itself, the severity of the loss of vision and hearing, and the onset. Is it congenital or it was acquired later in life? Is there any other kind of disabilities or not? Is it only deafness and blindness, or there is some kind of autism, maybe some kind of motoric disability? Of course, a child who is deaf and blind has the right to have other kinds of disabilities, not exclusively to have deaf blindness. Is it stable or progressive, like Usher syndrome? Can start only with deafness, then it will progress for blindness. So it's totally different thing from person to person and from kind of a status to another kind of status. You cannot apply one size fits all. Yeah, because as I just described, it's a distinct disability. It is not a combination of both. You cannot use one sense to compensate for the other. You cannot use hearing to compensate for the vision. In deafblindness, you can use it with a child who is not deafblind. But usually we use tactile and kinesthetic and haptic and smell and taste, which all of them except the smell are near senses, which actually make some kind of limitation of the child because he will not have or she will not have access to beyond reach information. Anything that beyond her reach, her like arm's reach, will not be accessible. Whatever the stimulation is, either it will be totally absent or it will be kind of deformed according to her level of perception. So it creates a lot of limitations, both in physical and social worlds. The impact of deaf blindness can have devastating effect of the child in all aspects: emotional, social, communication, and relationships with the others. It also affects how the child develops, but that's like kind of a statement sometimes can lure us to think that the children who are deafblind develop in different way than the other children, which is wrong. Children who are deafblind actually follow the same steps of other children in development, but they follow it in their own rate and in their own way. And if you follow the normal development, normal steps of development with a deafblind child, you can actually match step by step with every kind or every step or every level of development or all children. But the child who is deaf express it in a very different way. The deafblindness actually influences this biological readiness for personhood. When we say personhood, like going from individual to being a person, it's a social act. We always being born as a biological beings, then we become individuals, then we become persons, because the world, the social world around us help us shape ourselves from being individual, like one person, not attached to any other persons, to be a person. Person is a mask that we put in front of the others. So personhood, like in the old Greek drama, is a persona, the mask that you put it in front of the others. So this is how you represent yourself to the others and how you expect the other to represent themselves through these persons. So personhood is a social part of your individuality. The blindness hinders this readiness of the child to easily transfer from being an individual to being a person. Okay, communication, when we speak about communication as a concept, communication refers to exchange of information. It's very important to put this like word information in a very bold kind of font, because this what actually differentiate communication of any other forms of interaction. When we say communication in the field of deafblindness, we usually mean exchange of information, specifically information. It will be more clear when we go forward in the presentation. Of course, communication can be verbal or non-verbal, can be symbolic or non-symbolic, so it's different forms. As I was just saying, the key points of communication, it's about conveyance of message or information. It's intention. It can be intentional. Most probably it's intention, that I mean to deliver some message to someone. And it involves understanding and being understood by the others. There's no communication without understanding, of course. Like, if I try to communicate with you in Croatian language, and I don't know Croatian language, there will not be communication. To be attempts of communication, you will pick up some information from my body language, from my tone, but the information part you will miss. So this is actually the core of communication, the information part. The other side, or the flip side of the coin, we have the contact. Contact is what the communication resting on. This is the basis of communication. This is the initial state of connection. You cannot communicate with a person without having contact first. So you can have contact with a person and stop at that level. You don't go further or forward toward communication. And actually, usually this is what happens when we initially start to communicate or try to communicate with a child who is deafblind. We try to establish contact because contact is easier to establish than communication. It's faster, it's universal, so you don't need actually any kind of language or any kind of social connotation to establish contact. That's why in some references, it's called using the natural expressions like smiling, like frowning, this kind of thing. It's universal. Most probably, it's universal, or in the majority of cultures, it means the same thing. Being in contact with a person, that will enable further or deeper level of communication or interaction, to the point of communication you can actually reach up to the symbolic or kind of language communication. But contact has nothing to do with communication. It's just the mutual recognition of each other's, that you are present and I am present also. It's the mutual recognition of each other's presence. This is the contact. Okay. When we say social interaction, it's a third concept here. Social interaction in terms or in the field, in the realm of deaf blindness, it's usually it usually means the interaction or the reciprocity of emotional components, not the informational components. I was just telling you that the core part of the communication is the exchange of information. The core part of social interaction is the exchange of emotions. All human beings, actually all mammals, can socially interact. You can interact with your child, you can interact with your pet, you can interact with any kind of living thing if they have nervous system. So you can establish this kind of social interaction. You will have this kind of mutual comfort in communication without conveying any kind of information. You can share empathy if you see somebody who is hurt, somebody he is like smiling. You can have this kind of attunement of emotional status. This is the basis of social interaction. In some literatures, social interaction can be looked at as the umbrella that under it you can put communication and contact. But in my discussion today, I'm using social interaction as a third concept along with contact and information. So contact is the base of both communication and social interaction. Communication means exchange of information. Social interaction means exchange of emotions. So far, so good? Okay. The basis of communication. Communication can only develop in the presence of the others because communication is a social act. The communication cannot emerge or develop in vacuum, in social vacuum. You cannot do that. Nobody can develop communication without the presence of the others. As the French psychoanalyst and the philosopher and psychiatrist Jacques Lacan once said that we are born in language. So we are born as human beings in language. So you cannot have any kind of communication, you cannot develop any kind of communication without the presence of the others, because communication is a social act. Another base, being in contact is necessary for communication to occur. That means communication partners are aware of the presence of each other. You cannot communicate with somebody who is not there for you to communicate with. Sustained communication based on sustained attention. You cannot have successful communication without successful or sustained level of attention that enables this exchange of information. I cannot communicate with you if you are not attentive to me. Communication with deafblind children is very unpredictable. And this is one of the challenges that faces any person who try to work with a deafblind child, because they try to, or they expect that children's communicative acts in their own terms. In my term as an adult, I expect that the child will respond in this way, not thinking in 1 second that the child may signal that she agrees by moving her toe or something like that, because we don't do that. We don't do that. So the child who is deafblind can do that, and we miss a lot of communicative expressions because of that, because it's unpredictable. You cannot really plan a rigid intervention plan when you work with a deafblind child, because it's totally unpredictable, because it's highly individualized. Every child is different from the others. You cannot have some goals, educational goals from this IEP, and transition it to another person, another child IEP, and expect it to work. It's totally different. Communication is co-created. So you need to co-create it with the other person. You and the child are the partners of communication. In the Nordic approach, it's not called teacher, it's called partner. So as partner of communication, you co-create the communicative expressions along with the child. You cannot force it on the child. You cannot expect the child to have it sporadically. It has to be co-created. It's adults' responsibility, the teacher's responsibility, to become attuned to the child's tempo, rhythm, and mode of communication. So you need actually to attune yourself, like the musical group, when they are attuning each other to work together with each other using musical terms in the tempo, which is the speed, the rhythm, the intensity of the play. You as an adult, as a teacher, you need to attune yourself to the child. Do not expect the other way around. Okay, how, where, and when the child learn to communicate. As a rule of thumb, the child learn when they are interacting with a person, and the person who that can meet the child's in the child's own terms, not expecting to fix the child so he can respond to your terms. Primarily means being able to communicate in a way that's understandable and accessible to the child. Because sometimes, and I'm sure you have seen it, a lot of the communication that the teacher try to convey to the child are just vaporized in the air, because the child will not grasp it, because it's not accessible, because the child may be completely deaf or completely blind or out of her visual field, or and the teacher will expect the child will respond, or even the message reach the child. And we need also to be aware of the mode of communication, that the child rely on touch, rely on sound, rely on vision. So the mode of communication, the accessibility of utterances, it's very important to be aware of. It's not natural as it should be or as expected. You need to attune yourself to the child. In this kind of situation, when you as a partner can interact with the child on the child's term, in this moment, the child can learn to communicate. I wouldn't say the child learned to communicate. No, you are not teaching the child to communicate. You are enabling the child to learn or to develop communication. That's why the cornerstone of our discussion today, communication cannot be trained. Communication develops, okay? You cannot force the child, you cannot train, because training in my head means forcing somebody to do something. Training is different from learning. Training is coming from one end to the other end. Interaction is going in both ways. That's what helps the child to develop, interaction, not training. Training, you can train the child to sign a lot of signs and to say a lot of words. And for the child, actually, those signs and those words means nothing. And it will not be used in a communicative way at all. It can be used instrumentally. It can be used as kind of robotic expressions, but it will never be kind of, how to say, spontaneous communication. That's why we say communication can develop when the child and the other person experience something together and being emotionally involved in each other and in what they are doing. I'm sorry. That's how the communication is being co-created. So we need doing something together, mutual experience, emotional involvement, motivation, and the one that most people miss, the child has to feel secure. Like if we have a child who has like charge syndrome with a problem with balance and fear of falling, if the child is not stable and his mind thinking or being afraid of falling, he's not secure, he will never communicate with you in any kind or any meaningful way, because the primal fear of falling will block any kind of interaction, because the brain will be highly invested in preventing the child from falling. So there will be no energy left for the child to communicate with you. So being secure, being motivated, being emotionally involved, that's what helps the child to develop the communication. Once again, communication cannot be trained, communication develops. Communication is co-created. Communication goals and functions. Why we communicate? To obtain personal needs. I need to drink, I need to eat, it's cold, open up the window. Sharing information. I will not be coming tomorrow. Any kind of information. This food is too salty, I don't like it. Communication on what's happening, like showing commenting on what's happening, like showing interest. You are not conveying any kind of info. You are just showing your interest. Like, wow, you are doing this. Oh, I like your dress. You look great today. It's just showing interest. It's a social goal of communication, not information goal of communication. And of course, sharing experiences and emotions. I like this. I'm happy. I'm sad. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm motivated. So these communication goals and functions not only can be applied to a deafblind child, it's in human communication in general. Why communication will be the top priority in any kind of information, any kind of intervention? Because it creates bonding between the child and the partner. This is the vehicle where the bonding happening between the child and the partner. It promotes social interaction. It is crucial for mental health and psychological well-being because it breaks the isolation. Without communication, you will be isolated. And if you are isolated, you will suffer a very bad case of, how to say, the isolation leads to mental health issues in simple terms. It serves as a critical component of self-awareness because actually we as human beings cannot see ourselves unless we are seen in the other's eyes. So if you don't have the partner to communicate with, you will not form a real idea about yourself. So communication serves as this channel to get the approval, to get the confirmation from the others that you are there and you are existing and you are worthy. It creates access to both social and physical environments. As we said earlier, deafblindness hinders the access to both physical and environmental environments, physical environments, and communication can bridge these gaps. It facilitates learning. It's very hard for any person to learn anything without communicating about it. It's hard to the level of being nearly impossible. So you need to communicate on something in order to learn it. And of course, it assists in fostering independence. If we work toward independence, the person cannot be totally independent or at least partially independent if they cannot communicate their needs, if they cannot communicate their likes and dislikes. Okay. This is a model, a very famous model of co-creating communication. It was developed originally by Anna Navasta and Inga Rugru, which we sadly lost last week. Inga Rugru was one of the pillars of the field of deaf blindness, not only in the Scandinavian approach, but in the field in general. She's one of the founding mothers of the field. It's very sad that we lost her. So in their book, Co-Creating Communication, Anna Navista, the original one, because there is another version, I think it's out last year. In the original one, they developed this diagram of how to co-create communication. And it starts with emotional involvement in each other. So communication actually starts from the emotional aspect. The emotional aspects means if we look down here, the diagram go from bottom to top. This is the first stage. The child feel safe and secure and being accepted and being acknowledged emotionally by the others. From this stage, second stage happens, which is co-regulation of social interaction, which is intersubjectivity, the relation between the child and the partner, and we'll go in some details in the next slides. Co-regulation of proximity and distance. This is what I call the missed aspects of most IEPs, because we plan our IEPs missing these proximity aspects, which is very important. If we miss it, actually, we can mess up the communication. And co-regulation of exploration that leads to communicative expressions. So the child is able, because you shared with the child this and this and this, so the child can now be ready to utter and to understand or to get like expressive and receptive communicative expressions. And from these communicative expressions, you can move to co-constructed communication. Like you have these two bubbles of interaction going in both directions, which leads to shared vocabulary and shared experiences. So communication starts from emotional involvement in each other. There is no emotional involvement in each other. There is no communication. There is no co-creating communication. That's why in the previous slides, I said and highlighted and said many times, communication cannot be trained. It has to be developed. And this is a normal course of development. Co-regulation of social interaction means the balanced shared connection, especially in vital relationship involving congenital deafblind and the partner. The partner and the deafblind child together engage in some kind of improvised duet, again, in musical terms, to achieve sense of unity in social and emotion and cognitive realms or spaces. And this, to be successful, you need to be adaptable, and you need to be like sharing focus, which is kind of primitive form of joint attention, creativity to ensure both partners contribute equally interaction, because teaching cannot go in one direction if you are talking about deafblind education. If you instructing the child, actually he's not gaining anything. In human terms, he's not gaining anything. In human terms, the child is not gaining anything. okay? So it has to go both directions. And it has to be equally contributed from both partners. Co-regulation of proximity and distance. We have actually two kinds of proximity, two proximities, if we may. One, we call it the micro level of proximity and the macro level of proximity. The macro level of proximity is actually the distance that you can measure with measuring tape, with centimeters. This is a macro level of proximity. How that can affect interaction. Imagine you are standing in a bus station waiting for the bus, and a stranger came to you asking about direction. He's a very innocent person. He's a stranger. You have no experience with this person before, and he has no bad intention or anything. But he just standing here and asking you about the direction. Would you feel comfortable with this person? I don't think so. He didn't do anything aggressive or threatening, but he broke the rule of proximity, your comfortable distance, okay? This comfortable distance varies from different persons to different situations, from different times. Sometimes I don't want to be touched. I don't want to be even any person near me. Sometimes I need to be hugged. Sometimes I need to be cuddled. I'm the same person, different situation with different persons. This is the macro level of proximity. Okay, this is a big one that you can measure. There is the micro level of proximity. This is what we call the psychological distance. This you cannot actually measure in measuring tape. This is what you feel, the pressure of the other on you. Sometimes you interact with a person, you feel exhausted after interacting with this person because he's really pressuring you, like it's too much energy for you or too much low energy for you. It drains you. So this kind of energy, this kind of intensity of communication, this is what's called micro level of communication. So proximity, as I was saying, this is the missing part of most IEPs. People don't plan it. People actually don't think about it. And when you don't think about it, it can easily break any cycle of successful communication. So it's a very important part, proximity. And thanks to the diagnostic education, the Nordic approach, for bringing this proximity to the light. Co-regulation of exploration. The exploration part is very important. Why? Because the child, if we remember when we go back to this diagram, if you look here at this small person, this is the adult, and we see the child actually goes away from the person, from the adult, to explore the world. Why? Because the child knows the adult will be here as a safety base that he can return at any moment. So if you can form this security or safety base to the child, you will enable the child to go beyond arm's reach to explore the environment and go back to you. So you are there, co-regulated your proximity. The child knows that you are there and I can reach you when I want. Based on that, I can go out to the world and come back to you. And when I go back out to the world, this world can be like 15 centimeters. Doesn't have to go to the other country. I mean, going back to the world, I mean, out of beyond arm's reach. And as a child, when I go out to the world, I will explore some things and I will bring this exploration things to you and we can communicate about it. So we have some kind of shared experiences. So when you enable the child to have this safety base, that he can go out and come back with new experiences, and we can explore together, he can invite you to come and explore with me, that will enable the child to have topics to speak about between air brackets, to talk about. It doesn't have to be talking at all, as we all know. co-constructed communication, it's actually how the child share the experience with the adult, how the child can express what he experienced. It can be through gestures, it can be through natural expressions, but these shared utterances can be transferred into communication if the adults acknowledge it as a communicative act. If you don't acknowledge it as a communicative act, it will fade away. So you need to confirm with the child that what he expresses, the child expresses, actually means something. Some general considerations in communication. People with deafblind, like those without disability, talk to themselves, like we think inside of our heads, but with a child who is deafblind, you can actually see the thinking process happening in their faces, in their fingertips. This is what's called thinking gestures. These thinking gestures, if you can observe it, if you can grasp it, if you can pick it up, it allows you to know what the child think about, and you can learn from the child that he think about this topic in these terms, in these gestures. You can also use it. It's like teaching you his language. Communication focus should be on experiential foundation rather than specific intentions or culturally similar expressions. So you cannot expect the interaction to be similar to what's going on in the society. Or to follow the general linguistic rules. It's experiential. What the child experiences is what you're going to communicate about. Sorry, I had bad throat today. Okay. It's very important when you share experience with a deafblind person to actually try to put yourself in the deafblind shoes, to see how he see the world, how he experience the world. It's very important to know how the world is being felt by her or by him, so you can understand what he tries or what she tries to convey to you. You know the story about the blind friends who try to explore the elephant. You need to understand, you need to put yourself in the deafblind child shoes to really think, to really know what he's trying to tell you from his point of view. Okay, it's very hard skill to grasp for you as an adult, but it's very important. Now it's time for video examples. I actually put together some examples, some of them from my work and some of them from the work of Inga Rubro and Anna Lavestad themselves. So let's try to, but let me know if the sound works well, okay? Can you hear the sound?
Very low.
Yes.
Just try to.
Okay. Let's try now. No, it's, yeah.
It's really low, but we can hear something. Mm-hmm.
I'm unable to hear it.
Okay.
You cannot hear it?
Same here, yeah.
So
No, sir, I cannot.
but for some people it's heard, or it's a problem with you, I mean, or in the system.
No, it's really low.
Need
And
to
Okay.
you
try.
have to really try to hear it, but maybe you can volume it up. I don't know.
It's very
Or-
low.
Yes,
You can hear
it's
there's
very-
something,
yes.
but it's so faint you can't make it out.
Yeah, let me
just try to
something.
share it again and share the sound. Maybe it's up to that.
Baš je zanimljiva prezentacija. Ups.
Usually, mother and child create a greeting ritual together, which they use to make contact. We shall see now how mothers and deafblind children can do that. Just look at how they use blowing, touching, and movement. The mother kisses the baby's arm, and the baby tries to find her mother's face. Then the baby touches with her hand the place where she was kissed. And the mother confirms by kissing the same place. Then the baby goes to the mother's face, explores the face, and goes away. Then the mother tries again by blowing, and the baby touches where she felt the air. The mother repeats the blowing with the kissing.
Now we see a chin-to-chin contact. The mother tries to make her child feel where the voice comes from, while the baby explores the face.
So as we see, the communicative expressions can be really, really subtle. That's why we need the video analysis in order to be able to see any kind of meaningful things. Like I have heard many times from my teachers who trained me in the Nordic approach that actually Nordic approach couldn't be developed without the Handycam. The old Sony Handycam, that handheld camera, video camera. Without it, you cannot actually do this kind of work, because video analysis enables you to see a lot of details. Let's go to the next clip.
Usually, mother and child.
This from my work. I was very young, as you can see. It was a long time ago. And this was the first child I worked with. And here we are playing with two triangles, musical triangles. And I will not comment during the video. It's actually self-explanatory, but I can comment afterwards. Let's play it. I stopped here because this is what I was telling you about the thinking gestures. So the child tried to grasp what's going on, His hand is on the triangle, feeling the vibration. He had residual hearing. This ear is oriented toward the triangle where the sounds come from. And he stopped a little bit, thinking about the experience. And you can see his legs and his trunk being like shrugged because he's trying to grasp this kind of new sound. So he maintains the touch because of the vibration, of course, along with hearing. And we are keeping contact knee to knee, although we are not touching my hands and he's not seeing me, but we still in contact. So me and him acknowledges each other's presence. So he's asking me to I give it to him. I give the triangle to him. No, he asked me, you do more. So this kind of communicative expression can be missed because it happened in a fraction of a second. It can be missed if it wasn't recorded. That's why I always say video analysis saves a lot. It makes you see the unseen. He's asking me to do more by touching the triangle. Here I'm trying to play to change make some variations on the tempo, on the intensity, and on the rhythm to see, to introduce new elements within the already established routine.
What's the other one?
So here he grasped his and trying to imitate, trying to copy what I'm doing, or maybe he's asking me to do this, like he's offering or suggesting another theme, but most probably I missed it on the time. And I have to say, I was a little bit fast. I needed to be a little, maybe not a little, more slower than that. He's actually taking my hands to make me play again. And I'm trying to elicit some kind of more communication, like how he would ask me to go or to play more. And he's very persistent.
Don't skip from me.
So this is the co-regulated proximity. He knows where to find me. He established already the safe distance that he can find me if he wanted to find me. When I went away, the communication didn't break because we established this kind of proximity before. Okay, can move to the next one. This is another student of mine. Actually, I was called to this school to make some evaluation for the child. This child wasn't in a program for deafblind. He was in a program for severely intellectually disabled. And he didn't realize he was deafblind. So I was called to make some assessment to know why he doesn't respond. And here you can can see some interactions. So first I was only relying on his hearing by doing this humming sound, because this humming sound, before that he was doing it, so I was trying to imitate his humming sound. Now I try to make some transition from sound to touch. So with every hum, I press on his hand. And if you look at his face, he's smiling, he's comfortable, his breathing is very stable, not shallow, not fast. He's really thinking about what's going on.
Danny? 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 Danny?
When he laughs, I laugh, because I was just telling you about the emotional involvement. We need to mirror the child's emotional states to be attuned with the child, to have some kind of successful communication.
Danny? Danny? Adus Danny?
And of course, you can now realize Tani means again. So it doesn't need to be translated. When I say Tani, I'm asking him again, again.
Adus Danny? Beautiful.
And actually, he asked me again, like by his hand, if you can look closely. Now he like pressed on my hand to repeat it again. So in a very limited time, if you can get attuned with the child, you can elicit some kind of communicative expressions. I wouldn't say pretty easily, but pretty fast. And this is the last example this is our late Inga Rubru with a child. Let's see this episode of communication.
This scene is organized symmetrically, so it allows joint action, co-regulation, and reciprocity. As we will see, this type of interactions provides options for co-creating shared themes and variations within the repertoire of the child. Here we see a rhythmic pattern of tapping pencil on paper, and also variations in the duration of the tapping pattern. The adult triggers Andrew's attention by waiting a little bit before reacting. This creates awareness of the participation of the other. As a second theme, we just saw scribble movements, immediately combined with the first theme. Andrew attends to the action of the adult. Together they go on making variations within the two basic themes by using combinations of the tempo and alternating the duration, the order and the location on the paper. The hesitation of the adult triggers the child to act so that the adult participates again. Andrew controls Inger's participation by placing his hand just outside her hand.
waiting for him talking point. That's it.
Here it looks as if he says to his teacher, "Did you see me?"
So, as I was saying, any situation that with a child, with an adult who can communicate in that child's terms, can communicate with the child way of communication, can attune to the child. This is the optimal situation for the child to develop any kind of communication. You don't need fancy tools. You don't need fancy situations. All you need is your motivation as a teacher to understand and to put yourself in the child's shoes and to really be invested in the situation itself. Not try to force your lessons on the child, and try to be open-minded and to have the communication or the interaction goes both ways. And this is my bibliography or the references I used in these presentations. And thank you very much. I'm open for any comments. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Bassem. This was really, really interesting presentation. And I would like to ask if someone else has some questions for Bassem.
Hi there.
Hi.
From Canada. Sorry, I logged in late. I wasn't sure on the time of the start and with the time change, and you know what I mean. I'm new to the Zoom, trying to figure out. So anyway, I missed the beginning. I don't know if it can be sent out to PDF or is there a presentation that you can email? I'm in Canada, so I'm one of the new I'm new because I was at the Deafblind conference, international one in Ottawa, and that's how I got in touch with all these newsletters. So.
Okay, you will have chance to watch the presentation from the beginning. Do you know about? Are you a member of Deafblind International? Yes.
Yes, I
Yes.
signed up for
And
different newsletters, like and there's different like subgroups, and yours is one of them. I'm not sure which one it is. I signed up for a bunch
Okay.
of them that I thought would be good for me. My son has
Okay.
Charge syndrome, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And tell me, are you a member of our? So you can apply to Deafblind International Creative Arts Network on Facebook.
I think I did apply. I applied at the conference. I did apply to that one.
Okay, great. Then if you did, then you will have 2 or 3 presentation, and this presentation will be the 4th that will be uploaded after tomorrow.
Oh,
or yes, so you
on
will
Facebook.
have
You said
to,
on Facebook. It's on Facebook.
Facebook, yeah. And in a mail you will also get information.
Okay.
Yeah, about that. So
yeah, I'm new. Like I said, like I
yeah.
just signed up in the summer, and I just started
Okay.
getting emails from people. So, yeah, sorry, I'm new to all this. I did get the email. That's how I logged in. I got the email yesterday, the reminder, and then I wanted to make sure I logged in. So yeah, it was very interesting. I really enjoyed the presentation. It's like with communication, it's very important with gesturing, I find too. Yes.
Thank you, Sue, for your comment.
Thank you.
Another one?
I just wanted to add that yeah, that you gave a lot of thoughts, food for our thoughts by this presentation. It's always great to reflect on what we do, and some of the points that you mentioned about developing in a typical way and what we often forget, and not communication, not as not teaching communication. That's really important points to think about, and thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Yes, I would also continue with Martina thoughts and what I was really not thinking about before were thinking gestures. And it was really great in analyzing because you were mentioning it, and then I asked myself what that would be. I tried to imagine like how does that look, and it was great that you showed that in a video. So thank you for that. Yes, and it is really good for.
Comment on thinking gesture before the idea, please. That it's very important not to interrupt the thinking gestures while it's happening, because this is a time of the child processing the information. So if you notice the child in the status of thinking by observing the thinking gestures, try by any means not to interrupt it, because at this time the child tried to solidify his or her experience. It's time for you also to think what the child think, because there will be on the face, on the body, on everything, kind of subtitles, what he's thinking about, so you can learn how he thinks, how the thinking process goes on in his mind.
Yeah. Now we won't anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. That's actually a good reminder, because I know like a long time ago when Alex was younger, he's 17 now, he has Charge syndrome. I found that he was processing, not looking back now, he was processing information for so long that we're so not used to it being like we're sighted and we're hearing. We're so not used to that length of time for processing. I find he needed a lot, especially younger. Like he still needs it, but then it reminds us to slow down and just to wait, because I honestly didn't know that, and I'm thinking why, and then I thought I was wrong thinking that he was maybe unintelligent, but he's actually very intelligent. But it's interesting how people can underestimate him because he takes so long to respond, like the way we normally would expect.
I wanted to throw in there as well. I love that you have the video examples that you implemented into your presentation as well. I myself am a deafblind intervener specialist, and I've worked one-on-one with my student for about 7.5 years with her directly. And she has about a 10-15-second delay. And if no one knows her, they don't give her the chance to communicate, giving that delay in time for response. So I think that was really great that you threw that in there as well.
Yeah, there is always like a rule of thumb. You will never be slow. As an intervener, you will never be slow. Try to slow yourself as much as you can, and you will never be slower than the child. This does not say that child is slow in a negative way or in a like saying the bad thing. No, the processing time is different. So you need actually to attune yourself a little bit down in order to allow the child to process. By the way, in all my talks, when I say child, I mean the deafblind person, no matter the age. This is the language of a Scandinavian approach. So the child, I mean that child or the person who is deafblind, you will never be slower, because as much as time you give, it will be very fruitful at the end.
That's very, very true. My part of my schooling to get the second degree for the deafblind portion was at Utah State University, and they talk about how if you yourself have no disabilities, that you need to put yourself in their shoes in the aspect that you do try to give yourself a delay when you're speaking to them, not just for them a delay in responding, but that to go in when you're with your individual at that moment, to automatically take a step back in your speed of your speech. And that's something I also even still have to remind myself of. So.
And if you think about yourself or myself, living in our home for how many years, if the lights goes out, how slow you will turn, how slow you will go from room to room. Although it's your home, it's very familiar and you know it perfectly, and you will start to get very slow because you process the information now in totally different kind of modality. So we all experience that in our daily life. but we don't really stop and think about it. So if you think about the world from the near senses, you will be much slower.
That was really good. Thank you. And I was just wondering, I know I came on late and this is my very first time with this group. I'm just wondering where everybody is from. I'm in Canada. I'm near Toronto. I'm just wondering where everyone is from. Just curious.
Croatia.
Oh, okay.
Croatia as well?
Yes,
yeah.
Croatia.
Free Croatia.
I'm from Texas.
Texas? This is Amy talking?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Nice.
I'm from Egypt, but I live in United Arab Emirates, near Dubai.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any more questions maybe for Bassem? Bassem, really thank you for accepting our call. One big thank you. It was really a great presentation and we will have a lot to think about. And I was thinking to call you again, if you are okay with that, in a maybe near future. So you don't have to plan it, but please, I hope that you will accept it again. And for members of Creative Art Networks next year, maybe in January, or yes, maybe the end of January, we will have some group meeting. So I will hope you will join. And maybe you can think, okay, but yeah, okay, I have to look at the camera. My colleague told me, okay. Maybe you can think about if you want to, I don't know, if you want to do something for the network, and maybe if you want to be a member of our committee, and then we don't have a lot of work, but we can create, because the Creative Arts Network is really a young network, and we can create it together. So if you want to become a member, or if you have any thoughts and ideas where to go in the future, please write. And also, I mean, you can come to the meeting and you can express it. But before, it would be good to write me about what your ideas are about it, and also if you want to become a member of our committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Looking forward for more.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
So,
it was really glad. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Thank you for coming. Yeah. Bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.